Hi, folks. Welcome to the AWS Migration and Modernization Podcast. My name is Adrian and SanMiguel. I'm a principal enterprise architect here at AWS, joined by my good friend David. Say hey, David.
Hey, folks. My name is David Piet. I am a principal specialist solutions architect here at AWS.
Now, David, we're going to be talking about a couple things today. It's important to make sure that we context set. We really want to be sure that the audience level sets and ensures that whether you are a VMware admin, VMware architect, line of business owner, application, or you're among my people, the infrastructure rack and stack folks that make all the dreams really come true. This is the podcast for you. It doesn't matter if you are just starting in your cloud journey or you've been doing this for years or this is your first migration attempt. The idea is that we will begin to share some tips and tricks, impart knowledge, share some anecdotes of the stories that David and I have encountered over the years to better prepare you to undertake the first step of your journey or to better equip you with more tools so that you can make your journey a little bit less daunting. What do you think, David?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get into it. David, what are you hearing from our customers out in the field, given that you are a specialist SA in our VMware department?
Well, it's funny. There is one thing that I would double click on there, which is, when customers do their migrations, one other thing that happens along the way is, we release new services, new features.
Never.
Never.
Ever.
So the funny thing, especially in the last few months, is that customers that were planning migrations or maybe even mid-migration, we launched 2 services that land squarely in this domain. So, right along the way, we have to sit down with customers and say, hey, we've got new tooling. Maybe you want to use it. Maybe you don't. But really, at the end of the day, at a high level, this is a hot topic at the moment.
Yeah, I would certainly say so. I think the last we did a internal survey, not only of just the specialist population, but our business development folks, customers, account managers, just about everybody across the landscape. We're finding out that roughly 90% of our customers are engaging with us in conversations having to do with the VMware exit. That's definitely not where I thought we would be in 2025.
It's definitely a trend, that is for sure. And I will say, part of the reason why I'm here in Seattle right here and now is because I had an all-day executive meeting yesterday with a customer with this very topic top of mind.
Really?
Yep. They've got, like many, right, a variety of workloads. And one of the things that a lot of customers, I won't say struggle with, but a challenge is, VMware workloads could be doing anything. There's nothing standard about it, right? It could be desktops, it could be file shares, it could be homegrown applications, it could be COTS applications, it could be Bitcoin mining, it could be anything. So it's part of the challenge of it's not a one-size-fits-all. You can't just show up and say, oh yeah, you're doing this very specific thing, let's put you here, and that's what makes the most sense.
That's definitely something that resonates a lot with what a lot of our partners, our constituency, have been reporting on and really giving us a really tight feedback loop on with our customers. As much as it would be great and wonderful to have that magic wand to go swoop and say, all right, cool, you're potato, and everything is just kind of falls in line. It's different varieties of potatoes that are both delicious and nutritious. It just doesn't work that way. To be able to have at least a semi-accurate way to go out and do a survey would certainly speed things up, and I do believe we did something that would absolutely better equip partners and our customers in those migrations.
You bet. I mean, part of this, that is part of the challenge, right? Is that there is no easy way to do it, and it requires the inside knowledge from customers because a lot of it, this is traditional enterprise IT. And the part of the challenge is that some of these customers have been operating this way for decades.
All right, now $1 million question. Have you ever worked in enterprise IT?
Yes.
Has there ever been anything in enterprise IT that would indicate you to have such a strong opinion that we may not be doing things on the up and up or in the best practices? And I say that having been in enterprise IT myself.
Well, I have a funny anecdote for this.
Let's hear it.
So just last week, I was at the summit.
Okay.
Presenting a session on this very topic. And it was a chalk talk, so it's interactive with the crowd, and somebody in the crowd had said, Well, how are customers preparing for the end of life for Windows Server 2016?
Okay.
Okay, we're going to do a very simple exercise, and this is exactly what I rolled out in real time in the room. Raise your hand if you're running Windows Server 2016. 30 hands are in the air. 2012. Now 25 hands are in the air. 2008. 20 hands are in the air. I'm not going to ask about 2003, and I'm not going to ask about 98 or ME or, But, I mean, that alone, we see this all the time.
Yeah. Absolutely do. And then, of course, having grown up in the data center myself and been around VMware pretty much since, I want to say ESXi 2, if even that late.
This is my favorite competition. I love that because VMware admins, I don't mean to interrupt, but VMware admins always, I've been using it since 4.1. I've been using it since 3.0. I've been using it since it was called GSX.
I remember GSX.
And I'm still the new kid, and I've only been doing this about 14, 15 years.
I know. And it doesn't matter where you jumped in. There's always something new to learn along the way.
Yep.
And another way to check assumptions in doing migrations, approaching inventory, cataloging, discovery, learning what the applications actually do. Because to your point, what you mentioned earlier, hey, it's just x86. It's doing the thing. It can be anything, yes, but that anything, if it stops doing that specific thing for that group business unit application, the world stops. And it doesn't matter how great things were up until that point. It doesn't matter because the thing no longer functions.
100% accurate. And, the funny thing is, those old legacy applications, I've seen so many different flavors, including, I had a customer that's running a production DOS 2.0 application.
Run that by me again?
Yes.
DOS 2.
DOS 2.
Today.
It's been a while since I've talked to them, but most likely. But then it becomes, there are folks, the people who created that are retired.
Likely.
People aren't really sure what else it's connected to. And part of that, you have to do the discovery.
Yeah.
And you're going to need, at least to some extent, sort of that tribal knowledge to know what role is this playing? How easy is it to replace? How easy is it to migrate? Maybe we just turn it off. And the hope, certainly for some of these types of applications, is maybe just turn it off. But then to your point, the question becomes, what downstream is going to break?
Absolutely. And you would imagine that something coded in that specific way on that OS application, on that specific .NET implementation, the specific DOS implementation, there's going to be nested dependencies that us 20, 30, almost 40 years into the future, we're probably not aware of. And there's no way to possibly know because, spoiler alert, there's a pretty high chance that that code isn't very well commented, if at all. And it might be 20 lines of just random code, but if we don't understand what that code's doing, it doesn't matter. And this is what I stress to our specialist SAs and peers within our specialist community is don't just assume that when you look at an application that it's just a simple x86 application. You need to understand the ins and outs before you even attempt to migrate it. Now, this kind of leads me to a question that I've been burning in the back of my mind and want to ask you. When you speak with customers and they're confronting the specter of not knowing whether they've got, the typical tripping points of hard-coded IPs or, hey, we've got some nested dependencies here or we've got services running as an admin user or what have you. If I'm a user that is either midstream that has just discovered these things or just getting going and want to make sure I don't hit these things, what advice would you have for somebody?
It depends how critical it is. And I could give you a real world example. So
Okay.
I spent, in this role, I spent a couple years working with a very large global manufacturing customer.
Okay.
And it was a very typical, hey, we have to exit this data center. They had about 6 months to do it. And we had planned the migration. We were carved up across, I think it was 12 waves, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
3 weeks per wave, you ship the data, do some amount of user acceptance testing, and then do a cutover. In one of the middle waves, we were still in non-prod, so it was okay. But they migrate some VMs, and the applications in the VMs broke. It's like, okay. And this happens,
Yep.
right? It's not normally not a catastrophic thing. So,
But it does happen.
I mean, sometimes things go, you know,
So it's normal for sometimes things to not go perfectly according to plan.
it happens.
Okay, fair.
It happens. So we do some amount of discovery. We're trying to sort out what the problem is, and it turns out somebody had a file server running under their desk.
Never happens.
Exactly. It's the first time in history that ever happened. They forgot about it, didn't want to mention it, whatever, right? Now, the migration I would chalk up to being a success because there was a single threaded owner and the customer site that was judicious, to say the least.
Okay.
Very firm. We're moving your workloads, you know, unless you have an actual legitimate, compelling reason to say this shouldn't move, we're moving. And if you don't show up to the planning calls, you don't participate in any of this, I'm just going to assume that you're good and everything is green for migration.
Wow.
You know what? Most customers could benefit from a person like that.
It's funny you mentioned that because in speaking with partners, typically I spend most of my time, the ability to have an advocate, a single-threaded technical owner, an executive, somebody that is that compelling individual to either be the tiebreaker or the voice of reason, say, hey, all right, we're good. This is the plan. This is how we're actioning. This is the go forward. Speak now, forever hold your peace. That is always the critical piece in ensuring a project actually succeeds. It doesn't matter if you're practice building, doesn't matter if you're migrating a new application, brand new project, brand new product. Irrespective of what it is, without that single-threaded owner, you are going to struggle to succeed.
This person was the best in that role that I've been doing this for like 7 years here, and this person was by far the gold standard of doing it.
Wow.
And basically, at that point, we discovered that there was this file share, and they lost connectivity to the files in the share. App was having a problem, and his answer was, well, we didn't discover it, we didn't report it, it's non-prod, it's not catastrophic, figure out a way to get the file share over.
Move on.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
And, you know, the funny thing is, to his credit, like I said, they had 6 months to get out. And of course, there were other hiccups along the way too, which, I mean, it happens, right? There's always the planned and the unplanned and the pad yourself a little bit of, a little bit of makeup time if you have to. And we still got the migration done with like 3.5 weeks to spare.
Wow.
And for them, in their scenario, they needed to be out of the data center. Otherwise, there's going to be financial penalties that were significant.
Okay.
In a scenario like that, I mean, that was exactly what success looked like. And that was, in my opinion, the only way to be successful. Because if not, you're going to start bringing stuff back on-prem. You're going to face financial penalties. You're going to, it becomes like the rat's nest of workloads that now, if I bring this, then I have to bring that, then I have to bring this and this other stuff. And what about DNS? And what about my identity and all that? Like, it becomes a problem. And his view was, we move forward or we move forward.
There was no going back.
Nope.
In your opinion, do you think that the mentality and the wherewithal to be committed to the plan, but flexible enough to adjust and course correct where necessary, do you think that may be part of the secret sauce to a successful migration?
Absolutely. And I think part of it too, I mean, I will say this, we could joke about how many years people have been doing VMware stuff. The reality is customers have been running this way forever.
Yeah.
And I totally understand that change is scary to the human condition. I don't want to get too philosophical, but it's the reality, right?
It is.
And when something is so well understood, and customers have built all of their operational models, they have all of the baked-in governance, all the baked-in tooling. It is truly a well-built operation. Now, that's not to say you can't have an equivalent or even likely better once you migrate to the cloud. You just have to take the steps to get there. And so the question is, how do you, in a responsible way, keep your foot on the gas pedal? Keep migrating in. And I'll give you another anecdote. I mean, just so I'm sitting in this customer executive meeting yesterday, and again, this is another one that I've heard many, many times.
Okay.
I don't know what's going to happen if I have to reboot my VMs.
Oh, it takes me back to the old Solaris data center days.
And right, the moment I hear that, I know right away we're worried about IP preservation, hard-coded IPs. Maybe they're doing IP reservations with DHCP. There's a lot of things that go screaming through my head when I hear stuff like that. The customers that are successful doing this are the ones, I will say also, let me back up. You could either take a tactical approach and say, I just need to migrate, or you could take a strategic approach and say, you know what?
Interesting.
Let's clean up some messes that we've made over the last X number of years along the way. And the customers that actually have the time and are judicious enough to say, you know what? Let's clean up some messes. I mean, that's a great path to success. And it's really, to make the strategic decision to do that along the way really yields results once you migrate.
Yeah, you're kind of taking me down a trip down memory lane, taking me back to the time when I ran operations at a startup where I was in charge of our VBlock system, which I'm sure you know very well what I'm talking about. We were running out of capacity. We were constantly up against the storage threshold. We were thin provisioned. We were constantly having issues with VMs scaling up and then coming down. We'd never had enough real capacity in a scale event. So we started looking at this thing called cloud. And to your point, it was petrifying. Everybody in my shop understood hardware. They understood VMware. They understood virtualization, Ubuntu. They understood everything extremely well. It was a very well-run shop. But the second I started saying we could start looking at cloud, the exact same thing, but potentially here, and either get off of VMware, migrate on, and then potentially do a modernization project while we're doing it, this could be an opportunity to solve and tackle some of our tech debt along the way. And to your point with the DOS 2.0 app, that's not tech debt, that's like generational debt at this point. But nonetheless, we can laugh and joke about it, but it is a very real problem that somebody still has to solve at some point.
Customers are going to continue, that problem will never go away.
No.
So in my mind, and this is the other thing too, is when customers show up, I've worked with customers that have a few hundred VMs. I've worked with customers with thousands, 10,000s, and one or two that cross the 100,000 mark.
Okay.
There's no requirement that says I'm going to migrate tens of thousands of VMs and they must all go into insert service. For some stuff, it might make sense to put there, it might make sense to put here. Nothing is fixed for all time. And in my experience, the VMware admin, that's a idea that needs reinforcing, because they've been doing their IT the way they've been doing it for already probably a minimum of 10 years. So when you become more comfortable with this concept of, look, just because I migrate, into this service, or I scatter my workloads across these 5 or 10 services, it doesn't have to stay that way forever. And to my point at the outset of just one of the most exciting things for me about just working here is, if you wait long enough, there's going to be a service and a feature that does the thing you're looking for. And it's always changing. And as a consequence, when you operate in the cloud, you have this opportunity to iterate. While our services and features continue to get richer and richer, you can continue evolving what you do and how you do it. And so for customers that are just thinking, I can migrate and just move stuff over and have it, it's now and it's forever home and it could sit there, that's almost a disadvantage to think like that.
Absolutely. That mentality, while fine, it is almost an injustice to the application and to the individuals that are maintaining that application for that to be the end of it. Because as much as we would like to sit here and say it's one of those 18 months we're going to go back and do a modernization, we both know that's statistically very likely not to happen.
That is true. In my experience, that is true.
Okay, that was a burning question to make sure that it wasn't just me. I wanted to ensure that I had at least another individual confirm that.
It's true, and it's a function of a lot of different things, right? Some of this, I've worked with customers that had plans like that, and then they had other business, I would even say goals, other business objectives that came up. I had a customer that went through, in fact, actually two customers that went through a split. They're spinning off lines of business, very significant ones.
Okay.
Now you're dealing with workload separation. We have all these workloads all running in one data center, and I got to figure out what's mine and what's not yours so that I could take my stuff and go my way. You can take your stuff, go your way. In a scenario like that, I mean, that's also a very time-bound operation. Because then what happens is if you don't do that, I'm going to be back billing you for running your workloads in my gear. And so for those types of customers, I understand why that stuff goes on the back burner. And when I say that stuff, I mean the modernization journey to go on the back burner. Of course, too, there are plenty of customers that say, you know what, we've migrated, we've done the amount of modernization that we wanted to. It's good enough.
And that's okay.
That's totally perfect. If that's good enough for you, whether you don't want to continue modernizing, you don't have the bandwidth, the resources, the personnel, fill in the blank, also totally okay. Of course, this is where we have, a rich partner network, both on the SI side, on the ISV side, the MSP side, even this was a topic that came up just this morning of customers that are really financially minded, which, I mean, it's the times we live in today, right?
Absolutely.
In 2025, everybody is mindful of what they're spending or not. So one of the topics that came up this morning is, have you thought about FinOps? How do you approach your spend and what you deploy and how you manage it through a financial lens? Have you thought about that? For newer AWS customers, you kind of see their eyes widen and say, like, oh, that's a thing. How do we do that? Who do we talk to? What do we do? For other customers, they say, yeah, we've been doing that for the last however many years. But, there's a lot of opportunities in a lot of different ways. And again, I don't want to say the big L word, but VMware workloads are legacy.
Yeah.
And it requires more than just what new technology, what new widgets and gadgets can I use to run this stuff?
Do you think it requires a bit of a fundamental shift in approaching running these applications and treating them less like just individual widgets and more as in holistic components of the business itself?
I think it requires more than a bit of that. But part of the challenge that we face too, I'm sure you're going to appreciate this.
Okay.
Most customers, you'll have your infrastructure teams, the folks that are racking and stacking and cabling gear, installing images.
My people.
Right. And then you're going to have application owners. And there is a very massive wall that sits between these two teams. And, the funny thing is how consistently neither team really cares all that much what the other side is doing. Look, the gear is operational, it's patched, it's up to date. Whatever you want to do with it, do it. You need 100 VMs or whatever with whatever distro running on it. Great. Come back at the end of the day, you'll have them.
Yep.
And then the app owner is saying, I don't care if those blinking lights are mine or those blinking lights. I can reach my application. It's performant enough. Great.
So, with that in mind, how do you change that tide and use migration as that catalyst to finally tear down that wall? Is that something that you're seeing any?
Absolutely. And I see with some of the customers, many of the customers I talk to, when you see the dots start to connect because, it is a massive paradigm shift.
Yeah.
The traditional VMware admin, they are the kings and queens of their kingdoms. And the way that I've seen it the most successfully done is to say, listen, welcome to the brave new world. Go forth and conquer. And we've got tons of training and certification and enablement and account teams and folks like me, folks like you, that can sit down with customers and say, think about it this way. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Here's all the different ways that we can make things like this happen. Go to the summits, do the builder sessions, do the hands-on workshops. I'm a techie at heart. If you give me an opportunity to sit down and build a widget, I'm the happiest kid in the world. I want to sit down and go build and actually see how the thing goes. And when you sit down with customers and you have that experience with them, especially the VMware admins, and they say, it might be new, it might be scary, but it's not all that hard and it's not super different. And actually, it's kind of the same thing with a whole lot more features and capabilities and things. And instead of waiting for a pallet of gear to show up to go rack and stack, you can just click a few buttons, grab a cup of coffee, and you've got, entire fleets of things operational and ready to go.
Yeah, and all it requires is just the willingness to go out and beginning to explore. And as the application, the business begins to change, so does the mentality, so does the VMware admin, and so does really that entirety of the skill set. Because what is really lost in a lot of the conversations I have with partners and their customers, the skill set doesn't go away. It doesn't erode. It does not lessen in any capacity its value. If anything, the rarity goes up, orders of magnitude, where you have somebody such as ourselves that can speak the old language, that can speak the new language, and to your point, making use of training and certification, various sorts of skill builder courses, getting hands-on and actually going out and building and learning in this way makes you more than just a practitioner. I mean, it helps you get that hands-on expertise that you just really can't get any other way. And what we are finding, at least in my explorations with these partners and customers, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, is once the VMware admin or the group of architects that's in charge of the infrastructure start making these wins and gains, everything else just falls into place.
That's exactly right. The fire starts burning hotter.
Yeah.
And it's... the other piece of that too that's definitely worth calling out is the VMware admins that have been doing that for 10 years at customer X, they have all the tribal knowledge of their workloads, which is also a very critical ingredient to the success of any kind of migration, modernization, workload expansion. They're going to understand all the nuance. I always call it like the gremlins in their workloads, right? Because there's always like the quirky thing that actually makes what they do different and unique. Yeah, we have this one thing where we do, insert whatever. So the admins that know those, that can look around the corners and anticipate, hey, if we do this, we're going to have a problem. So we should think about fixing it here, planning it there, whatever. And again, this is how you help the VMware admin connect the dots to say, you know what, actually, there's nobody better for the job carrying these forward into the cloud, whether we just migrate or we modernize. I am the right person to be doing this. I have all that knowledge. I could learn all this stuff with the cloud. When I came to work here, I was also overwhelmed. And back in those days, it was only 150 services. And I remember thinking like, oh man, I'm never going to learn all of this. I'm never going to know all this stuff. There's so much stuff and it's always changing.
Yeah.
Totally manageable. And thank God we've got documentation and other specialists like you, like me, like everybody else, where phoning a friend is completely acceptable. And the customers do the same thing too. And they reach out to us all the time and say, hey, we're kind of stuck on this one thing. What do we do? Perfect. Let's hop on a call, walk through it, think this through, figure out what we need to build to get around this, and we'll get you through it.
And something you mentioned just now, and it's something that some of the listeners, some of the viewers may not recognize or realize. Through your account team, you do have the ability to escalate to a vast network of specialists across just about every domain you could think of: compute, network storage, migration, hybrid edge, Internet of Things, AI/ML, databases, name it.
We'll be here for 3 hours if you list them all.
And then odds are I'll probably be in most of them, to be completely honest with you. But I digress. The idea is, regardless of what your need is, to David's point, if you're the VMware admin, if you're the business owner, if you're the financial individual that needs to get into FinOps, yes, we do have individuals in our CloudOps practice that can help walk you through the ins and outs of that. Irrespective of what the specific challenge is, we've got you covered.
Also, if you're a customer, a partner, anything in between, both, all of the above, none of the above, we're just here to help.
Absolutely. So, David, we've done a lot of talking at this point, and we've covered a lot of different battle scars. Some funny anecdotes, some horrible memories over time. Question for you: has there, in your time here, you mentioned you've been here a little over 7 years now? What has been your favorite aha moment in working with a customer? It doesn't matter if it's a multinational or a small customer in their migration journey. And this is important because many customers feel like they will never get there. And I think it would be important to share the win and why it was important.
I was working with a global financial institution.
Okay.
And similarly, they had top-down mandate out of all of their data centers. It was like, I think, 22 or 24 data centers worldwide. Depending on the day, 100,000 VMs plus mountains of other stuff that was not virtualized. And they were taking a very strategic approach. And they said, okay, we're going to recategorize all of our applications. Whatever we tagged as a tier 0 app that needs, the highest of high availability, all the way down to tier 5, where something happens, it's, we could wait 2 weeks to bring it back up. And everything in between, they were really strategic in making sure to clean up any messes along the way, to a fault.
Okay.
So they had spent about 2 years leading up to this just doing workload discovery. Because again, especially in the VMware space, you can spin up, spin down VMs. It's like tissue paper. It has zero effect on your hardware. And so they had done all of these. They brought in all these different partners to do discovery and the application rationalization. And they were just poring over the data for an eternity. It's like, okay, well, we just did it, but did we think about this? Did we think about that? And finally, we had tried to get them to say, we could sit like this for a decade.
Perfection is the enemy of good.
My favorite quote that I learned on this job is exactly that. And this was another customer actually that they had to get out of their data centers. Otherwise, financial penalty. Big financial penalty. So it got to the point where the single-threaded program manager on the customer side, we were all on site with the customer. They had brought in folks from around the globe. We had about 70 people on site. And finally, they had just said, enough. Enough. We have whatever the latest analysis we have. Enough. We're not going to entertain more discovery. Yeah, we're probably going to crack an egg or two along the way. And we're going to start with dev and test and non-prod. And to their credit, and this is really important, they took a very Amazonian approach, which I very much appreciated, which was any mistakes we make, we need to learn from. Any successes that we have to be repeatable. We're going to document, we're going to learn, we're going to scale. And I always say this, and I have peers that always, roll their eyes at me when I say this. Crawl, walk, run. This is the recipe to migration success or modernization success or digital transformation success. Crawl, walk, run. And they took that approach. They did it in a very responsible way, but they had the wherewithal to say, enough. If we keep doing this, we're never going to get out on time. And they had a staggered timeline of when they needed to get out of these sequential data centers. Start on this continent, then this continent, then this continent. And really that, to me, it was probably the first time that I saw somebody really take the reins on the customer side and say, we just got to do it. It's enough. And so for me, that really emphasized the importance of having, not just an owner, but somebody to make sure that the show goes on. And it was really a formative moment because especially, folks were saying, think about how many workloads we got. Think about all the things that could go wrong. What if we move something and we lose connectivity to DNS or, our identity provider or any of the above? And so it was really sort of accept you might break an egg or two. Like you're probably going to break an egg or two. But it's not worse than not moving.
Absolutely. It almost seems like they made the judgment call to make a real-time risk assessment and say, we will deal with the consequences. We need to get this done. We'll learn as we go. And to your point, document it, automate it, or improve on it to the point where you can repeat the successes and move forward.
That's exactly right. And to me, that was such a critical thing. And it's something that we think about, working at Amazon. It's also part of our ethos as well, which is just make sure things are repeatable. How do you scale it? How do you make it bigger, better? How do we improve this going forward? And it was the advantage of documenting. And again, I mean, you want to get back into the details. Infrastructure as code, because now anybody can come in. And what they had done was they had approved architectures that went onto the menu. And they, of course, we spend time with their network folks, their security folks. They beat up these patterns to make sure that everything was safe enough for customer data, safe enough for the variety of compliance requirements they have, again, depending on what continent we're looking at. Once these patterns got approved, they're on the menu. If somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to deploy whatever this architecture is, it's already approved. Go ahead, here's infrastructure as code, poof.
Done.
Right, and especially for the VMware admin, these are folks they're administrators. They want turnkey stuff.
Absolutely.
I want to be able to just click a few buttons. I don't necessarily want to go through customization and building all these things from scratch. I just want a turnkey thing that I can deploy, have it operational, and I could go about my business.
And most importantly, have it be predictable every single time that you run it.
That's exactly right. And so now, they had infrastructure as code, and as time went on, the menu gets deeper.
Yeah.
And you get to build out more and more things. And to your point, it's totally predictable. Of course, I've deployed this 10 times already for, these 10 different BUs, and I know exactly what it's going to do, and I know that this is the right medicine that you're looking for. So here we go.
Fantastic. I got to say, David, in speaking with customers, we hear far more about the knee scrapes than we do about the victories. It's just, the way things tend to go more often than not. If I'm a customer who has suffered a knee scrape, they run into discovery, they break the eggs to make the omelet, so to speak, but then, if anybody's a parent or knows somebody that's a parent familiar with a certain TV show with dogs where they feature one of the children trying to make omelets, and it's a mess. You make a mess, and it becomes a horrid type of situation where you don't know what went wrong, but you do know that something went wrong, and it's a full stop. And you lose confidence, and you lose trust. And application owners become upset and frustrated. If I'm a customer in exactly that situation, what advice would you give me not only to regain the trust, but get the motion going again?
Take an inventory of what you missed. You got to learn from your mistakes. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. For all of and I like that, the knee scrapes that I've seen, I've never seen a customer have this pound the brakes, we are coming to a full stop and reevaluating life as we know it. I've never seen that happen. No?
Wow.
Part of that.
Generally a myth when we hear about it out in market or from some folks.
I mean, I like the way you said it, that we hear far more about the knee scrapes than just this is a straight up victory.
Yeah.
We had the goal, we had the compelling event, we hit the goal, we hit the deadline, and it's just went more or less as planned. I've never seen something grind to a halt. Of course, I've seen hiccups. Somebody's got a file server underneath their desk. Sure. Misaligned timelines for getting a direct connect stood up or something like that. I've seen that happen. Yeah, it might hit a 2-week delay or something like that. I've seen, customers just run into issues in terms of not understanding their own workloads correctly, or what maybe an AWS service can or cannot do. There's a lot of customers that do come in and say, we don't need help. We've got the skills. We can do it.
Haven't heard that one before.
I'm an engineer in my core.
Yeah.
To an academic level, I get paranoid about doing things fast and loose. It's just sort of my personality. I don't measure twice. I measure about a dozen times before I cut once.
Yeah.
And part of this too is when I spend time with customers is to share the learnings that I've seen other customers scrape their knees on.
Mm-hmm.
In the infrastructure space, it's usually pretty straightforward. Let's talk about networking first. Security posture. What's your storage look like? Business continuity plans, always. Those are certainly not the exhaustive list, but those are the things that are top of mind, at least for me when I sit down and have these conversations.
Yep.
Hard-coded IPs, that's one that's everywhere.
Yeah.
Just because it's not best practice.
But it's good enough to get it to go in almost every situation.
That's absolutely right. But this also, too, when a customer comes in and says, oh, we're just going to do it ourselves, we've got a ton of programs where we can work with partners. We have AWS Professional Services. There's all these different levers that we can pull to help support a customer. And if a customer is successful on their own doing the migration, great. Truly, that's wonderful. But the reality is around 60, 65% of our customers are leaning on partners to do these migrations and modernizations. And our partners have even more experience and skill doing this than they do.
Yeah. It warms my heart that you know that stat, because as the one-time migrations essay, that's something that we're pretty proud of, to have partners involved in the successes of our customers like that. It's just a testament to how far into the partner network that we're willing to lean into and better equip our partners so that they can be our scale arm, so that they can be the ones getting into the weeds, finding those different gotchas to help you avoid those new scrapes as you go. Yeah.
At scale, there's no other way to do it.
No.
And there was a famous CEO once upon a time who said that there's no compression algorithm for experience.
I think I might know who you're talking about.
You probably do. But, you can't fake that. And
No.
it's the best North Star you can have when it comes to this, because I want the folks that have scraped their knees countless times, because it's always going to be something different. There's never going to be a time where I sit here and say, you know what, I've seen it all. That will for sure never happen.
The one thing I can say is that I've seen all that I thought I would see in a particular vein, in a particular domain. Like, I thought I've seen everything storage can do. But no, there's always another way for it to blow up, or for it to be over-provisioned, or what have you. It's interesting that you put it that way, that there's never a limit or a cap to the way that migrations can be done, or lessons to be learned, or gotchas to be taken advantage of and worked around and learned from, and guidance given to customers. I think that's something that's a little unappreciated. Less in market, more amongst us specialists. It's something we take advantage of in the fact that we sit in a Slack channel with other principals of 1,200 of us that have rapid fire access to best practices constantly. And we just don't think about it because it's so easily accessible to us. But to the average individual, that's a godsend.
Well, and that's something that certainly changed my perspective. Is you and I and countless others here, we do this all day, like day in and day out. We eat, breathe, and sleep this. But when a customer comes in, this is entirely new for them.
Yeah.
And so they don't, the customers will come in, and if they know enough to say, I don't know what I don't know. Like I have no idea what could go wrong. I have no idea what could go right. I don't know if this is going to take a week, a year, a decade. Beats me. And for us, we just show up and say,
I'll figure it out and get there.
It's just a Thursday.
Yeah. To me, it was Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that, we both work specialist requests, and at least twice a week, at least for me personally, I see requests for people asking exactly that looking for that North Star of, hey, I'm starting off on a VMware migration, or hey, we stumbled on our first block, we found hard-coded IPs, or hey, we realized we're not using DNS at all, or hey, we thought we were using DNS, but it's really just we reordered Etsy host to go and look at local host files, or which never happens on the Linux side ever.
Never seen it.
Never seen it. And as people are realizing this, they're raising the flag and asking for that help. Being able to dip into that, either in between the specialist at AWS or within the partner network, that's just something that's that extra confidence booster, so that no matter what it is that you run into, what it is that you find, it's that extra layer of security, confidence, and almost really like a level of reassurance that
Absolutely.
irrespective of what it is that you're running into, you're not going at it alone.
Honestly, to me, it's the human element. And just to paraphrase that, it's really people just want to know, hey, you've done this before?
Yeah.
Great. Like that alone is a giant safety blanket. And to be honest, yeah, my email and my chat messages are full of just, hey, my customer wants to talk to somebody who's seen or done this before. And I certainly appreciate that. And as much as I would love to sit there and say, I'm the best you'll ever talk to when it comes to this topic, I mean, there's countless folks just like me that have worked with customers doing these migrations with the same battle scars and scraped knees. And really, I think at the end of the day, it's helping customers just scale that stuff out and say, maybe next time, think about not hard coding your IP. Maybe don't point Etsy hosts to a different file. Like these are some things you should be mindful of doing in the future.
Well, as long as customers learn at the end of the day, I think everybody wins in the end, to be completely honest with you.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, this is another one of my favorite anecdotes, and this is, full disclosure, this was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. reInvent season is upon us.
Yes, it is.
Right? And we know, our customers know, there's going to be mountains of announcements, new services, new features, new groundbreaking things that are going to make probably most people's lives a whole lot easier. I had a customer who was mid-migration. I will never forget this. It's around reInvent season, and I was living on the West Coast at the time. My customer was in the East Coast. So I wake up, I open my computer, and I have this email from the customer saying, hey, we're trying to figure out, we've got some load balancing questions. We're trying to figure out how we can bring in, basically feed in traffic worldwide, into our architectures, into our workloads. And I had back-to-back meetings in the morning, and I didn't really get enough time to get back to them, within minutes.
Yeah.
Now, at the time, this was a little bit outside, things that I could just ring off the top of my head. Go and do some searching. And I find a blog post that is minutes old. Literally minutes old. Now announcing global load balancing. And I'm sitting there, am I reading this right? Is this right? The date's right, the year's right. I've never heard of this. I don't know what this is. I'm sitting there doing a little bit of research, and I replied, because I've been working with these folks, daily for probably about 2 years at this point.
Okay.
And, I just send them the blog post and say, listen, if you take a look at the timestamp.
Cards on the table.
Yeah. This is brand new. I have no idea what this can or cannot do. It's literally brand new and really far removed from anything that I know about or am adjacent to here. So read through this. It sounds like it probably is going to address some of your problems. And in full disclosure, if I replied to your email an hour ago, my answer would be wildly different. If you want to talk to somebody from the product team or the service team or a specialist, we can absolutely make that happen. I just don't have anything to add to beyond this blog post that says, hey, this thing now exists and you could just go use it right now. And it was really funny because he replied back like instantly saying, wow, this is really cool. Is this what it's always like?
More or less, yeah.
Kinda, yeah. So even then, for it's part of the paradigm shift of things are always changing. They're always getting easier, always getting better, more and more features, more and more functionality. And especially, we haven't even talked about our launches earlier this year. I mean, we've got the Amazon Elastic VMware service for customers that want to maintain the VMware stack on AWS. We've got AWS Transform, which is helping customers migrate a variety of different things into AWS, whether it's mainframe, .NET, VMware. It's helping customers do all this amount of discovery, all this amount of streamlined transformation and migration. And oh, by the way, it's all powered by generative AI. And for customers, when they see that, of course, the VMware admin might say, oh my God, this is big and scary. And you just get them to say, it's really not. It's not that different from what you've already been doing. The language might be a little bit different. You know, what we call this versus what you call this might be a little bit different. It's not as different and scary as you might think.
So if I were a VMware admin looking at Transform, like you just mentioned, for VMware, how would you recommend that I get started? One of those things where I just start throwing my configs files at it, start playing with it, or is there something else that you would recommend?
I'll start by saying this. If you have an RV Tools export, you're using VMware NSX for your on-premises software-defined networking. It can help you do discovery. It will give you infrastructure as code for your networking on the AWS side. It's a really powerful tool, and it's going to help you, at least in the VMware case, it'll help you get into EC2. And so for customers, for the VMware admin who is brand new to AWS, I would say EC2 is going to be the most similar AWS, core service to VMware. You're running virtualized servers, so already we're not that far away. And then it just becomes, I mean, again, in my experience, I would say that the biggest hurdle to climb is there's the well-understood way of doing on-premises enterprise networking. Oh, you've got your VLANs and your top-of-rack switches and whatever you're using for firewalling and whatever you're using for load balancing. These are all well understood by your enterprise architects. When you come to AWS, things are going to be a little bit different. At the end of the day, you're still going to have layer 3, layer 4 security. It's not that different. But the constructs are, and how you think about it are. And so, in my opinion, that's a really good first step. And I'll give you another anecdote, actually.
Okay.
I was in Seattle earlier this year for a different executive briefing with another customer. And they had their VMware admin in the room, and their goal was, we want to go to native AWS. Okay, great. You've got a whole bunch of options. You go to EC2, you can containerize. We're here to work backwards from whatever you're trying to do. And out of the corner of my eye, the VMware admin was sitting to my left, and out of the corner of my eye, I see him staring at the ceiling, and then he pops open his laptop, and I see him open the AWS console, and he had some very rudimentary AWS experience. And we're talking about, you could migrate to EC2, you should think about your networking, you should think about, whether it's power cycling, right sizing, all kinds of different operational things to think about. And they were really hung up on, but how do we migrate? Like, how are we doing the conversion? Well, at the end of, and I don't remember if we had gone a little bit over an hour, and the fella to my left, because we were talking about using application migration service, MGN. And that's only because AWS Transform actually hadn't come out yet. The fellow next to me spins around his computer and says, actually, everything this guy said was true. It's really not that hard. I just created a VM and, launched it over into EC2, just did the migration with MGN.
Instant win in the room.
And I'm sitting there thinking, like, I guess you guys don't need me anymore. Yeah. And it was really funny because it was sort of, for the whole room, he had just I could just, he spun up a little tiny Linux and just shot it over. And at that point, there's nothing more that I'm going to add to that conversation. I could help them plan, help them think about, what it looks like doing a migration at scale, of course. But the moment you see that actually it's kind of easy. And of course, there are the things that people are going to trip on. What happens if I get a new IP address? What happens if I forget about a file server? What happens if, take your pick. But once you start thinking about the art of the possible, you're not going to be worried about knee scrapes anymore. Because now if I'm the VMware admin and I see that it's not that hard, I could be the hero. I could be the champion. And to come full circle with the very judicious person that I worked with at that one manufacturing customer, that was his perspective, was not only am I going to be the hero, my whole team is going to be, we are a team of heroes.
Changing the narrative from the infrastructure team from being a tech debt center to a profit center.
That's exactly right. And then it becomes, hey, the next thing you need to get done, if you want it done, you want it done on time, you want it done, within all the constraints that we set, you're going to call me and my team.
And we're going to get it done for you because we've got the experience and the trust of the business to get it done.
That's exactly right. And then when you see that ownership and you see that on the customer side, right, we are going to control our destiny and we are going to be the internal heroes that we need. After that migration, they had, I don't remember if it was 3 or 4 more data centers to do after that, and they're still plugging away at migrations.
And as a specialist, you can take a step back and look at that and recognize it as a job well done.
Absolutely. And at that point, it's just kind of, it's like the proud parent in me is just like,
aw.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my work here is done. You know where to find me if you need me, but the world is yours to go conquer. Go do it.
That's fantastic, David. We're coming up on time. So in closing, what guidance would you offer for the VMware admin or even the business owner that's still maybe listening or watching, curious on that next step to take? Where would you send them to go get started?
I would say, a couple things, right?
Okay.
You don't have to have the world's, the answer to all the world's problems today. You got choices. There's a lot. We're here to work with you, work backwards from the skill sets that you have and the skill sets you don't have, the resources you have, personnel, time, existing partners, whatever. If you're not familiar with AWS, we've got a whole variety of the training and certification programs. There's mountains of free content. You have access to your account teams. We've got a variety of programs, whether it's financial or training programs, to work with you to get you up to speed and rely on our expertise, rely on partner expertise. It might sound daunting for you, but customers do this day in and day out. And so I don't mean to minimize, that overwhelming fear or, knowing that you're going to have work in front of you to do. But we've been doing VMware to AWS migrations for the last how many years?
It seems like forever at this point.
Yeah, 10, 15, 18 years of migrating these workloads into AWS. It might be new for you, but it's not new for us and it's not new for the world. And so we're really here to just work with you, work backwards from what you're trying to do and support you, help you meet your goals, because the tech is really, at the end of the day, the technology is kind of here nor there. We're here to just help you meet your business goals.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, David. Folks, thank you so much for joining us today. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Look forward to you joining us on another episode of the AWS Migration and Modernization Podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.